goes live in 2 minutes. Lynn Cullen live in 1 minute. Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com.
Why, hello to all of you. It is. What? Is this a little too? Was that a little too?
No, I'm
upbeat?
good. I'm good now. Yeah.
Hello. Here we all are, Wednesday, February 6th. Chris Potter, editor of Pittsburgh City Paper, joining me, as is his wont, on... Or not.
Yeah. Let's see. Ask me in 20 minutes.
So how come that want is spelled W-O?
I don't know. You always flummox me with these.
Well, does it mean the same? It means essentially the same thing.
Yeah.
But it's spelled O.
Yeah.
And we don't know.
I don't know.
And while we're on the subject, for the last few days, I cannot tell you how many times I have heard educated people use a word incorrectly, and it's same word, and it shows. During the I've been watching for some reason a lot of Senate committee, watching C-SPAN. God help me. And most of these people, they all say the same thing. And then I heard it today on the news again. Jeez, it's a perfectly good word, and you can tell it's going to die. It's dying. It's on its deathbed because nobody chooses it, even though it's the right word. The word is, it's just a 3-letter word. Few.
Few?
F-E-W.
People are using it wrong?
They don't use it.
Oh. What did they say, less?
Yes.
Oh,
They use less, and less ain't right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I do. Yes.
They'd say things like, well, maybe said
Like less than 12 items in this.
F-E-W-E-R, fewer.
Oh.
Like they were saying, so there'd be less drone strikes.
Yes.
There'd be less blah. That's not right. It's fewer. Fewer's gone. It's joining the apostrophe and God knows how many other things. I just wanted to note it because it's something that has...
Yeah, I can tell. It's really been working on you.
Well, somebody's got to mourn fewer, and that'd be me.
I guess it's going to be.
Another word, good word that's gone, eager.
Huh? Really?
People use anxious instead.
No. Do they?
Yes, they do, and they're incorrect again.
Perhaps that speaks to some rising level of uncertainty here at the end of American empire. That even the things we're looking forward to
Perhaps it speaks to
inspire anxiety.
General stupidity, lack of vocabulary.
Jeez.
Okay, we got to get into some heavy political crap.
Right, now that we're done with the bitter old people yelling at other people to get off their lawns. Yeah. And while we're at it, like that was 60 Minutes used to end with the Andy Rooney segment. We're kind of starting with it. That's the kind of path-breaking thing we're doing here on the culture.
Okay.
Anyway.
All right. Okay.
Thank you.
So the old lady will shut up for a second here. And no, we got a lot of things to talk about. We got the governor's budget. I want to talk about a lot of things going on here in the county. I want to talk about what has been referred to within my earshot of our county executive's megalomania. Why do you look like you're spacing out?
I'm just thinking about it. No, I'm looking into the middle distance where great ideas are formed.
Like I couldn't tell that you were focusing anywhere.
Yeah.
You were okay. You were with us?
I'm totally with you. Yeah.
Okay. But before we get to that, there are two little items in the paper that I've got to get off my chest, and it's somewhat like few. No, it's not.
Okay.
Did you see this? This is beyond belief.
Okay. I don't know.
You know the Amish, the beard-cutting Amish guys?
Oh, yes. Life in prison for that?
What? The prosecutors are asking for a life term for the big guy who wasn't even, he's the mastermind, I guess, but he never cut a whisker himself.
I also like the idea of being the mastermind of a beard cutting. Like that's pretty small beer as far as criminal mastermind.
Out of their minds?
Yeah, we should just be glad.
There are people serving
less than that for
fewer
rape.
Years.
Yes.
Fewer years for having killed a few people. Raping and pillaging.
Yeah.
And this guy ordered some of his minions to cut the beards off some people, and the prosecutor seriously is asking for a life term?
Yeah.
That is insane.
Well, would he be eligible for parole? Because then maybe he could shave a few years off. Sorry.
All right.
Sorry.
Well, okay.
That did seem crazy to me, and I didn't get all the way through that story. Was it because it was some kind of hate crimes thing, or they were able to lard it up?
How can you be a hate? Well, no, I don't know.
Because it was
even a hate crime. Nobody died.
Yeah.
A beard died. They grow back.
They do grow back. Your Honor, the victims cannot possibly recover from this. Well, actually,
this is the most insane thing I ever heard. It's the feds. It's the federal prosecutors urged a judge to send renegade Amish Bishop Sam Mullet. I love it.
That's the other thing.
It's too much. It's way too much. If you were making this up and writing it, people would say, well, that's a little heavy-handed to call him Mullet. Yes, but they want Sam Mullet to spend the rest of his life in prison for, get this, here's the crime, a life sentence for orchestrating a series of beard-cutting attacks.
Right. Yeah.
Beyond belief. No, it doesn't say, I knocked it off, right, where it said the government said, well.
Now we'll never know.
But that is so
that is ridiculous.
Totally insane.
That is ridiculous.
Okay, I had to get that one off. That's off my chest. Now, the other one is not funny, but it's also courtroom, and it made my blood run cold. This is a rape case happening here in Allegheny County.
Yeah.
Before Common Pleas President Judge Donna Jo McDaniel.
Mm-hmm.
This is a guy who was charged with, I believe, raping 6 women. He was a serial rapist, doing it, like day after day after day or something, terrorizing people, blah, 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 blah. He's representing himself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so his victims, these women who were raped by him, are testifying in court.
Yeah.
And his first victim, who he raped at gunpoint, and all of these things are this guy was a terror. He then cross-examines her. Mm-hmm. And the judge said, you have to remain seated. She wouldn't let him get up and walk toward the victim. Mm-hmm. Instead, listen to the questions that this woman who's been, they got so much on this guy, I'm not even going to say alleged.
Yeah.
this guy raped her.
Yeah.
And now, in public court, she has to sit there and listen to him ask this. Were you comfortable having sex in that way? No, she replied. Were you crying? Yeah. So how can that be allowed that he gets to essentially rape her again in front of everybody? Then a second witness comes up, another victim. Were you scared? He asked. Did you do everything I told you to do? What the hell?
I mean, I guess
you can't.
Yeah.
There's nothing
you
that
have
can
the
be
right
done.
to confront an accuser, and you have the right to represent yourself if that's what you want to do. I mean,
I cannot.
Yeah.
I cannot.
I don't know that anything could be done about that.
Wow.
And did prosecutors object to
I
his
have no
line of
idea.
inquiry?
No,
Okay,
I
so-
didn't say in the article,
Yeah, I guess
but
they
I
didn't.
can't imagine that they wouldn't have, and it's just beyond belief to me that any woman who's already undergone that would then have to. And the question sounded like he was just getting off on it again,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's sick.
Yeah.
And, okay, I got that off my chest, but God, horrific.
Yeah.
Okay. Well.
Now what?
Oh, gee. You look nervous. Okay, there's nothing but serious stuff here. But
We'll see what we can do about that.
okay.
Okay.
I always find budgets boring. The governor unveiled his.
Mm-hmm.
It's already being hailed as much more generous
Wow.
than any he's had before. Funding for schools up, welfare up, blah, 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 blah. I assume you don't find budgets as boring as I, and I know that you probably look through this a little bit more than
I
so.
think the main thing is, so that's the headline, right? It's a more generous budget, but you got to remember that all of that has an asterisk attached to it, which is that extra money for education, extra money for welfare and things like that are contingent on the legislature also doing stuff that he wants done on these other issues.
So it means that you have to sell the lottery and have Keno.
And you have to overhaul pensions in a way that may not actually be legally sustainable, depending on how they go about it.
And you have to privatize the states. All of it's contingent upon all of
so
that.
so when you think about it, I mean, and it's been for a few weeks now, and I've sort of been following this online, how his budget secretary, Charles Zogby, and some other utterances of the governor himself have sort of been laying the groundwork for what is essentially pitting teachers of today and the students in the schools of today versus teachers who have retired and these public sector employees who are always, so I mean, I actually think it's remarkable to me that Corbett is so ludicrously unpopular, because I think he's actually more subtle in a lot of ways than some of these other guys. When Scott Walker or Chris Christie want to come out and bust a union, they bust it right in the chops. I mean, they basically take their big meaty fists and plant it there. And what Corbett does is this stuff. So he says, we'll have more money for education if I can get these pension reforms that I want run through. And if that doesn't happen, well, it's an education-related expense, so we'll have to find the money somewhere, and education is where we'd be looking at it. It's already setting up this sort of tension between teachers who are retired now or near to retirement age versus those who are younger and for students as well. It's a way to set up people who have been promised something and want that promise delivered on to be made out to be the bad guys.
Yeah. Well, in that regard, it's
smart politics.
But
right. I think everybody should sort of be in mind, because I saw the headlines today. I mean, you've got the Post-Gazette in front of us. Governor loosening purse strings. Not exactly, because there are strings attached to those purse strings, and people should be mindful of that going forward.
And ultimately, he wants to get away from pensions in general for state employees to be replaced by.
Yeah, more
401ks,
what they call
which I'm sorry, why would anybody want to do that now that 401ks have largely been shown to be not a good retirement.
Why?
Tool.
That's why the state employees wouldn't want it. For the state taxpayers, of course, it's a better deal because what it says is, now I'm only on the hook for X dollars a year, and we know what that cost is, and I don't have to worry about if your retirement fund goes down the crapper when you actually retire any more than you're going to worry about what happens to mine. I mean, that's the political reality of it. It is not obviously a defined benefit plan, which is what they have now, which is you're guaranteed a certain level of support in your retirement. That is the better deal for them. So there's no question about that. Again, it's this question of, for many, many years, the way, that we have this fiction in our head that government employees are better paid than private sector people. And that's actually not true when you look at their wages, what they earn from week to week, month to month, year to year.
But they often have better benefits.
It's because, and that's the whole thing, is that politicians bought them off sort of with promises of what they'd get down the road sometime while stinting them in the short term.
Christianity.
The pie in the sky when you die. Yeah, exactly.
Right. Yeah.
So it's a very these budget things, people always sort of look at them and the budget proposal originally is just sort of an opening salvo, and I think in this case it's especially true because there are all of these other agenda items, the liquor store privatization and things like that, which I think is also sort of an interesting example of, I'm Governor Tom Corbett. In my first year, I preside over a $1 billion cut in education funding, and then a couple years down the road, when everybody hates my guts, I find the one Pennsylvania institution that's less popular than I am, the Liquor Control Board. I promise to privatize that, and if we do it, it's $1 billion of money that could go back to the schools. So you kind of preside over the creation of the crisis, and then you come back and use that as a reason for getting what you want down the road.
Well, it sounds like you're selling him as a pretty adept politician. He seems pretty inept.
Yes,
he's managed to become like just about the most unpopular governor in the country.
Yeah.
When if you look at the governors in this country, there's no reason he should be the most unpopular.
Well, that is, and I said that before. It's a striking thing. I think, first of all, you look at the LCB thing. I mean, basically, he dithered over that for 2 years. He didn't do anything. He just sort of
he should have done it fast.
Well, I mean, if you're going to do something like that, you want to come out with it. But that's been and I understand the calculation there. More popular governors than he have faltered when it has come to this. It's very hard to dislodge a setup that's as popular as it is. We were talking about this a little last week, I think.
Wait a minute, as popular as it is.
As popular as it is with the people in the legislature.
And remind me why it's popular with people
for a couple of reasons. One is all the liquor store employees themselves, the LCB employees, are unionized, and so there's a Democratic constituency. There's also a Republican constituency for this for a couple of reasons. One is just sort of the moral conservative types. The others isn't, and I think we talked about this last week. Joe Scarnati, this Republican from Jefferson County, is worried that if the free market takes over,
he won't be able to get a beer anywhere.
It will be harder for them to find liquor, which, if you think about it, is amazing. I went up and looked at this for this column I wrote this week. Jefferson County went for Mitt Romney like 3-1. It was like 72 to 26% or something like that. And you know that a high percentage of those people were casting votes against socialism and against those big city takers who rely on government subsidies to live. And yet their guy is in there going to bat for a socialist liquor store system that is propping up stores in his own community. Right. So it's like, the level of cognitive dissonance there is fairly astounding if you think about it. But that's the kind of thing. That's the reason. And you got to realize it's not just as employees. Beer distributors are a politically fairly powerful organization.
Tavern owners in the current system.
Tavern owners have a stake in it.
But how do they trump we, the people? Because the consumers.
Right. Well, we've seen this a million times. Ideas are just because 70% of people feel a certain way doesn't mean much if they don't feel particularly strongly about it.
Like
that committed gun control. We could look at any number of issues. A committed minority beats out a sort of majority any day of the week. It's true in Washington, D.C., and it's true in Harrisburg. So, we'd all like more convenient liquor, but how much are we really going to... Are you going to vote somebody out of office because they don't do it? Obviously not. Because we've had this system for decades, and we re-elect 99% of the people who are up for re-election. So there you go.
Well,
yeah, I mean, I think you're right. I think Tom Corbett is they've got to be panicking in the governor's office.
Oh yeah.
So now after 2 years, he's falling back on sort of the last.
I better throw some money at this and appear to throw some money at that.
I'm falling back on the last refuge of the scoundrel, which is doing what I was actually elected to do. Right. I mean, that's right. So now all of a sudden, this thing that again, as you say, 70% of Pennsylvanians are for privatizing the system, and now we're going to do it.
And he actually talks about our infrastructure. Specifically our roads. And excuse me, but is this Republican governor actually raising taxes, even though they don't call it that?
Right. He says it's not, but yes.
Of course it's a big tax increase.
Anybody, I think any honest assessment.
He's lifting the tax cap.
Yes.
On
gasoline
at the wholesale level.
Right.
And of course that will be passed on to the motorist, which is, I don't know. If the motorist uses the roads, having to pay for upkeep seems reasonable to me.
I don't think it's an unreasonable thing at all.
Right. But that is a big tax increase.
And that's part. I think that's the one other thing about Corbett when we talk about his unpopularity. Even within his own party, support for him is pretty anemic, and I think that's part of the issue. I have railed against Tom Corbett many times. I reserve the right to do so in the future. But when you look at the rest of the Republican Party in this state, it could be so much worse. And he's already looking at a likely primary challenge from a guy named Bruce Castor out east.
And who'd beat that?
I think he's the county commissioner in Montgomery County, if I recall correctly.
And he'd be running to Corbett's right.
To Corbett's right. Yeah.
But he's not. Is he a Tea Party type?
I don't know him that well to qualify him that way, but he has certainly taken issue with Corbett on some of these issues from the right, and so it'll be interesting to see if there's a primary challenge.
Not that we're getting ahead of ourselves; it's 2 years away, but. So if Corbett is so vulnerable, then who do the Democrats have a surefire person to put up? They do not.
I don't know that they have a surefire person. There are several people whose names have been kicked around.
Why wouldn't Honorado try again?
I don't think that's going to happen. I think he's probably pretty happy where he is. He's better
because
paid.
He's making $1 million.
And I think too, you lose to the guy. Is the level of buyer's remorse so much that everybody wants to see you, up again?
So who do the Democrats have? Bunch of people from Philly.
Yeah, that's actually Allison Schwartz was somebody people were talking about a lot early on, but now she's not in it. I'll confess I've been up since 4:45 this morning, so I'm blanking on the guy's name, but the treasurer, the Pennsylvania's treasurer, and I'm just completely blanking on it.
You think I would know Pennsylvania?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Treasurer?
I'm sorry. I'm just blanking on it. He's somebody who's been talked about. The fact that I can't remember the guy's name probably suggests a challenge. No. He's the auditor general, newly elected. Okay. He's a name. Joe Sestak's name has been kicked around. The guy who ran against
Joe Sestak.
Yeah, and he certainly outperformed Honorado in 2010 against Pat Toomey.
Well, that'd be nice. Sestak would be great.
So there's a lot. There are names getting bandied around, and I think what you're already hearing from Democrats is they do not want a contested primary. They do not want in 2014 what happened in 2010 where you had multiple candidates. You remember there was Honorado, but there was also Jack Wagner. There was Anthony Hardy Williams from out east. So you had a field there, and they're trying to sort of cull that field before it even gets out of the game.
You can try, but everybody's got a right to run.
That's
so
right.
We have to take a break.
Oh, holy mackerel! You're keeping me on task.
Oh yeah. So we shall do that. We want to come back and actually talk about these drone strikes and the White House memo that got leaked to Michael Itzikoff at NBC. So we'll be back in just a minute.
Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com or call Lynn at 412-316-3381. Lynn Cullen Live will return in a moment.
Join 1 Billion Rising Pittsburgh for a global day of festive resistance to end violence against women. 1 billion women assaulted and raped worldwide is an atrocity. 1 billion people dancing to end violence is a revolution. We will rise on V-Day, February 14th, 12 to 2 p.m., Market Square. www.onebillionrisingpgh.org. Strike, dance, rise.
Pittsburgh City Paper is available now. Pick up one today for great ideas for Valentine's Day. Plus, John Pinette, Dark Star Orchestra, Aaron Smith, and News of the Weird. Pittsburgh City Paper, available at over 1,700 locations throughout Western Pennsylvania, and on the web at pghcitypaper.com, and on your smartphone at citypapermobile.com.
More is on the way with Lynn Cullen Live.
Okay, are we back?
I guess we are. That was the wrong thing, I think,
yeah,
wasn't it?
Whatever.
Yeah, that doesn't
Okay,
work.
so you remembered.
Rob McCord. Sorry.
Rob McCord is the treasurer.
Thank you. Jeez.
Okay, never heard of him myself. No.
Great guy. Your next governor.
Whoever the hell he is. Sounds young. It sounds like a young name.
Yeah, by Pennsylvania politician standards, he's a young guy. Yeah.
Okay.
It's like dog years, you know.
All right, so, okay, the memo. I have to admit that part of me, the vengeful part, that I like the ability to do this.
To kill people at will.
Yeah. I do. I admit it. Mm-hmm. I'm telling you, I admit it. And even though I may be asked to resign, I serve on the state board of the ACLU.
Well, you admit the impulse. That's not the problem.
And the ACLU is like gone ballistic about,
so to speak,
this. Yes. Okay. Now, if you look at the memo that was put out by, do we know what lawyer, like in the Bush administration, we learned the name of like Mr. Wu. Remember him?
John
or
Wu. Yes.
You or Wu?
No, it was Wu, W-O-O, I believe.
Okay.
John Wu.
Who decided that, he figured out that torture was perfectly reasonable and legal and wrote a legal memo to the president so that you can torture anybody you want. And we don't know who wrote this one, but he sounds like a lot like you in that there is, or who.
Oh, I thought you meant me. Okay.
Then who or
what?
you?
It was ponderous with a lot of bad puns in it? Is that what you're trying to say? Yes.
Who's on first?
Exactly.
Who is it? Is it who?
I think it was Wu. John
Wu.
Yes.
Keep it straight.
He looked at torture and he said, Woo. Yeah.
Okay. So it says essentially that it's okay to kill this is not just about using drones in general, but this is using a drone to kill an American citizen.
Yeah.
And this
mystery author
said that it would be lawful to do so if an informed high-level official determined, one, that the target to be is a ranking al-Qaeda figure, that he or she poses an imminent threat of violent attack on the United States, and these are not ors, these are and the capture of this person is not feasible.
Right. So we should put an asterisk beside the word imminent as well.
Oh, no, this is what I want to go for.
Okay.
This is such a riot. So, okay, there's a lot of, could we define terms here? Okay. First of all, let's define the first term, an informed high-level official.
Right.
My understanding before this memo leaked was that only the president...
Yes. That was what he insisted on.
I'm going to look over every one of these and sign off. And apparently we don't know.
Presumably he's an informed high-level official, so...
So why don't you just say the president? Or does that mean...
No, it could be somebody else.
The fact that it's an informed high-level official could mean it could be the head of the CIA, it could be the deputy director of the CIA, it could be the deputy director's secretary.
And as we know, none of those guys ever make mistakes.
Never.
So
So that's the informed high-level official. Now that the person they want to kill poses an imminent threat of violent attack against the U.S. Now, I got to tell you, I don't care what citizenship a person is holding. If they are about to bomb the Super Bowl or something, then and we can take them out, I say take them out.
Depending on who the halftime act is.
Okay, so... Well, didn't you like the halftime act?
I certainly did, yes.
Yes, yeah. Oh, God, he sounds like a dirty old man.
Anyway.
Okay.
But I would have let Madonna go. That's all I'm saying. Go ahead, anyway.
Okay. So here is this unbelievable thing. What is an imminent attack?
Right.
Here is how this nameless author says an imminent threat is. First, the condition that an operational leader presents an imminent threat of violent attack against the United States does not require the United States to have clear evidence that a specific attack on U.S. persons will take place in the immediate future. Excuse me?
Yeah.
So, in other words, you have to know, in order to kill this person, they have to be about to pull the trigger on an imminent attack on U.S. soil or citizenry.
That would not be.
However, you don't have to. Imminent does not mean imminent, is what they're saying.
Yes, that is right.
Imminent does not mean it will take place in the immediate future. It says right here, imminent does not mean it will take place in the immediate future.
That's right.
Well, then I guess my follow-up question is, well, then what the hell does imminent mean?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Yeah.
That's what imminent means. You can't.
Yeah.
Well, that is the silliest.
It's a meaningless.
That is so funny. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. Yeah. It is Orwellian.
And it also says that it does not require the United States to have clear evidence. So you can have muddled evidence that an attack might occur in 20 years.
Right.
And then you can kill the person.
Right.
Because that's an imminent attack, according to this.
Right. Right.
Well, I'm sorry. I was, as I said, I'm ambivalent in a lot of ways. I don't.
Well, Lynn.
And then I looked at this and I thought, no.
Hey.
No.
Hey, as a wise person once said, do you want the smoking gun to be a mushroom cloud?
That's right, exactly.
Right? I mean, come on. We should be able to kill people with this, with the same high standard of evidence that we do for invading countries. That's what I think.
And also, we get to kill these people if it's not feasible to capture them.
Right.
So here's what they say regarding the feasibility of capture. Well, you see, capture. Wait, we got a caller. Hello, caller.
Hello, Lynn. This is Michael, Palm Springs.
Hi, Michael, Palm Springs.
Hey, doing okay. I don't like these drones at all because, remember Anwar al-Awlaki, who was targeted, the American citizen who was supposedly with Al-Qaeda, and a lot of information.
No, he wasn't supposedly. Hey, Michael. He was with Al-Qaeda. He was a chief propagandist. He was.
Yes, he was. Okay. He was also an American citizen.
Well, he obviously was a traitorous
American citizen. Now, should we have, during the communist witch hunt, should we have just grabbed up every single American who was a communist and put them in prison? They were a threat to America.
I'm sorry, I perfectly agreed with knocking him off. But, you see, that's why I said I'm ambivalent.
Okay, then what about knocking off his son and then having a chief White House advisor say that the reason that the son was killed was because he had an irresponsible father?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That is
if that's
true.
A capital offense, I could tell you at least one person in this room is also in a lot of trouble.
I'm sorry. Upon this, we're going to have to agree to disagree. And it's odd because yesterday I was at my therapist, and he was getting angry. I was sitting there all calm and cool, and he was getting all mad.
Yeah.
And he said, well, I think we're going to have to change this subject. And I just sat there, okay.
Also, if that the guy we're talking about, you define him as a propagandist. Is that all?
Lynn called him a propagandist.
Yeah. If all he was a propagandist.
Yeah, because in order for this to work, he had to be
operational, which is different from propaganda.
Well, I think then they decided that.
Oh, sure.
Well, hey,
and of course, and then of course the next time they're going to decide, okay, he wasn't Al-Qaeda, but he had Al-Qaeda-ish thoughts.
Right. And he spoke them.
Where do we stop it?
Yeah, and remember the whole problem here is that,
in other words, you guys are doing a slippery slope argument.
No, not just that, but I think what we're also saying is, look, the whole problem here boils down to this highly placed person who's going to make these determinations about who's in operational control and who's not, and there's no court of appeal, there's no finding of fact. It jumps over that whole thing where there's an actual deliberative process, where there's an adversarial process where the contentions of the prosecution, as
That's
it
right.
were,
You can't argue with that.
contested.
I mean, I agree. You can't argue with that, which is why, as laid out in this memo, this distinctly seems unconstitutional in regard to what an American citizen's civil rights are.
Yes.
And
absolutely.
what if Chris and I are having a dinner and, for other bleeding heart liberals, and a terrorist comes to our gathering, we don't know it, and that person is targeted.
Right. Yeah.
Hey, we're going to go up with the guy.
Yeah, absolutely. That's
Well,
right.
you should pick your friends a little more carefully.
Exactly.
I hope this makes you...
in this case, I guess I'd better end this call because you are subversive, Lynn.
Also, if it makes you feel any better, I think there's a requirement that they try to minimize the amount of collateral damage when they do these strikes. So there you go. So.
Oh yeah, that's right. These are clean and surgical precision strikes. Yes, that makes it so much cleaner. And I'm sorry if this keeps going. If we don't start putting a little bit of fire under our president, I'm going to sit down and write John Yoo an apology letter.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Okay, well, no, I said when I saw this this memo and read some of it, I mean, if this had come out of the Bush White House,
we'd be livid.
I would just be
absolutely apoplectic.
bouncing off the walls.
Yes,
it's true.
Yeah, it's right.
Yeah.
And so those who accuse us of having a double standard,
No, it's true.
are
It's
right
true.
to do so.
All right.
Thanks for the call, man.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I think the New York Times has a front page story today that is just chilling. It's about a man, I think they said he was 40 years old, who was a leader in his village. I hope I'm getting this right. And he courageously spoke out against Al-Qaeda I think he's in Yemen, Al-Qaeda. And not surprisingly, the Al-Qaeda guys in the neighborhood asked to see him.
Yeah.
And he agreed to have a meeting with them.
Oh, no.
He brought with him his brother-in-law, who was a police officer for protection.
And this is when they hit him.
That's right.
This is when they hit Al-Qaeda.
And he was meeting, this courageous man was meeting with, bravely again, meeting with the people he had spoken against. And that's just when our drone hit.
Yeah.
And we were going after the people he was talking to. We killed. The verb used by the New York Times reporter was we immediately incinerated all 5 men. There were 3 Al-Qaeda, this guy, his brother-in-law, and a camel that was nearby, all incinerated, just. And this guy was a father of 7.
Oh, for Christ's sake!
Okay,
that's,
so there it is.
And that's the other thing which we haven't talked about is the extent to which
what happens to. Now, everyone in that guy's family who was anti-Al-Qaeda, who was exactly the kind of person we want.
Hearts and minds.
We killed, hearts and minds.
Yeah.
We killed him.
This is the thing, and this is the thing we haven't talked about. Are we making enemies faster than we're killing them off? And that's a broader question that has nothing to do with sort of the unusual, and there will always be unusual, I think, case of Americans abroad, doing whatever. This is the broader problem with these drone strikes is it's such a low barrier for us, right? You don't have to declare war. The average American doesn't even know this stuff is going on to the extent that it does. Well, it's easy to do because there's no danger of an American coming home in a body bag, an American soldier coming home in the body bag. So it's easy to do, and we have no idea what the collateral effects of it are.
And here is the other thing that should make people like me, who sometimes think, yeah, right, get these guys, to sober up a little bit. The technology at use here, these drones, is readily available and will be in a few years to any country. Yeah. Consequently, while we love the fact that now we seem to be the only ones using them, picking people off left and right wherever we want, well, guess what? Our enemies will have drones too.
Yeah.
So what you're looking at is the beginning of a new kind of warfare. And while you like it when you're the only ones who have it, like we like the atom bomb until other people happen to have it.
Right.
Guys, we're going to be on the receiving end of this kind of thing.
And this gets back to the point I was making earlier. If it's okay to pick off propagandists, frankly, I'd rather call into this show from now on, to be honest with you, because sooner or later, what's to stop China, just to take the most obvious example, or Iran or whatever, from obtaining the technology and deciding that they're propagandists who are hostile to their interests and are calling for, the eradication of Iran from the map? I mean, you could probably look around in the halls of Congress and
well, wait a minute. So you mean, so the Chinese might have a drone and kill Rush Limbaugh?
Why not? Why not? I mean, at a certain point, what we're saying is, we're looking at this memo that seems to play pretty fast and loose with some of our own rules, which I think we'd at least like to think are really very well established. So, what's our sort of moral high ground when somebody else interprets their rules even more loosely and comes after us? I mean.
Let us also make clear that this memo was not secret to the what committee would this be in the Congress that had seen this document?
Gosh,
the Senate Intelligence Committee or
maybe,
something.
Yeah. Defense. I don't know.
Whatever. At any rate, this they knew it.
Yeah.
They didn't. So you've got the executive, the White House, and the Congress knowing this and not having really much of a problem with it. And my guess is most of the American people would not have a problem with it. And here's where, again, the third branch of government might be the only one that can put some stop on it.
Right.
But given the current Supreme Court, you don't know.
That's interesting because we have seen conservatives, not the U.S. Supreme Court, but we just had this thing the other week about, that the president was overextending his authority by doing recess appointments. So, granted, that was a lower court thing.
They've been doing recess appointments since
for decades. That's right. Right. But still, so what you see is, and what we have seen, even when the Bush was in office, we have seen, to its credit, the Supreme Court rein in some of what they were trying to do down in Gitmo and so on and so forth. So, there is it wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility to see a Scalia and a Roberts and some of those guys come around and actually, in an attempt to restrain executive power, actually hem them in on this sort of stuff. And I believe there are lawsuits filed by the survivors of the attack I think we previously mentioned, who are basically suing the federal government
of Alaki.
For wrongful death, I think, and
he was
some other
born
stuff.
in New Mexico.
Still a state, even though it has the word Mexico in it.
Not really. I have to tell you, this is so funny.
No, my mother lived in New Mexico.
I was early on in my radio career. I had a producer who, by the way, was a Penn State graduate, and she said, "Lynn, do you know how to get the long distance operator?" This is how long ago this was.
Sure, yeah.
I said, no. I said, "What do you need the long distance operator for?" And she said, "I have to call New Mexico." It's a Penn State graduate. She's also the one who very excitedly told me that we were going to do a special show on the 100th anniversary of World War II. I said, I don't think that's possible.
Maybe she just believed in planning ahead, Lynn.
No, she was very adamant about that it was the 100th. It was coming up.
Time for a break.
Yes. And okay, time for a break. We'll be right back.
Stick around for more with Lynn Cullen live after this.
Go to birdbargains.com for great deals on meals from your favorite local restaurants, museums, and shows. This week only, get discounts up to 20% on gift cards to Applebee's. Supplies are limited. birdbargains.com, Pittsburgh's best bargains. birdbargains.com.
This is the sound of a flat-screen television hurled off a building. Now the new bike your kid wants. These are the things you could have all cast into oblivion. Because when you throw away money on wasted electricity, you throw away everything you could have bought with it. Use Energy Star light bulbs and appliances, and you could save hundreds of dollars a year. Saving energy saves you money. Learn more at EnergySavers.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Energy and the Ad Council.
You're listening to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Once again, here's Lynn Cullen.
Okie doke. Welcome back. Ansel writes, I think Corbett should be more afraid of Kathleen Kane and her investigation of Corbett than anything else. Yes, no, yes, no. No.
You know what Kathleen Kane's doing that is cool, though, is this, she's joined in with this suit against Standard & Poor's, the rating agency.
Well, I think there's
a bunch of other,
states.
yeah, there's a bunch of other, but I think that would be interesting. Now, if there's a sort of counterfactual. If she had lost that race, you think the Republican would have joined that lawsuit to go after
No, in fact, what we used to do is we joined the lawsuit to say that Obamacare was unconstitutional.
So I actually think of those two things that may be the more lasting. I don't know that this is going to... I'm dubious.
Dubious. There's a good word. Okay, I have to tell you, I'm confused. There's so many. What's Fitzgerald up to? We're talking about County Executive Fitzgerald. Every time I open the paper, somebody else has gotten fired. He's throwing people out left and right, and I always thought that these authorities, like Airport Authority and Port Authority, were sort of like that the county executive didn't really have a direct, if you were to do one of those graphs showing how it works, the county executive appoints
That's right.
members of the board, which is...
Who are supposed to have fixed terms.
Yes.
And that's supposed to insulate them from political pressure.
Okay, but so Fitzgerald just... throws people. What? No, he didn't throw.
No, so
the board.
Yes.
But whatever. I'm starting to think. It sounds like he wants to literally. I mean, we didn't elect him to be the head of the Port Authority, but
right.
It sounds like he wants to be.
Yes, and it sounds like that to you because.
What?
That's how Rich Fitzgerald sees it. I mean, he has straight up told us this. It's interesting. This all at the time of this, a week ago, we had a feature story. Or maybe it was 2 weeks ago. It all blurs together for me. We had a feature story about Rich Fitzgerald. It was 2 weeks ago. His first year in office, and the one sort of warning sign, because he had done some stuff that was good stuff, and
yes.
But the one warning sign was he has been, and the first sign of it was with the Board of Health, where they ousted Bruce Dixon, who'd been there for a very long time. And there was this allegation in Dixon sued for wrongful termination. There's this allegation that what Fitzgerald does is when he appoints board members, he has them give him
a letter of resignation
that's undated that he can basically pull out of the drawer whenever he wants and oust the guy. Fitzgerald has confirmed that is true, although not every board member, say on the Port Authority, had signed one, and he says he's never used them. But the board members he has appointed have signed these letters that are basically, I hereby resign my thing, and he basically can pull that whenever he wants to. So effectively, Rich Fitzgerald does not believe authority should be independent. What he says is, look, I'm the guy people vote for. I'm the guy that people complain to when the Port Authority is screwed up. They don't call the board members. They don't know who the board members are. They call me. And because of that, and because a lot of county money goes to fund these agencies, I'm the decider, as it were. So that's essentially how he rolls. And we should say that he's not alone in this. I can remember back, and some of the older heads out there may recall this too, back when they were talking about using the county sales tax revenue to build those new sports stadiums. They had to go through a 7-member regional asset district board that administers the tax. There was one guy on that board who'd been appointed by Bob Cranmer, the Republican county commissioner. This is back when we had county commissioners. And this guy said, you know what? I don't think this is an appropriate use of tax money. And Cranmer kicked him off. And that was it. They got a new guy in there who could be counted on to vote in the way that Bob Cranmer wanted him to vote, and that was the end of that. So Rich Fitzgerald did not invent this. There's always been a sort of, yes, they're an independent thing, but they're appointed by the guy, and so there's always been political pressure. It's never been this pure thing. But what he's doing now is, I think, is remarkable in the sheer
Audacity,
brazenness. He's completely. But to his credit, he's totally above board about it.
Yeah,
he does say this is what I'm doing.
But so it's really like he sees himself as I'm going to run the whole damn thing.
Yeah, I think he sees them as departments that can issue their own debt. I think if you had to sort of say what an authority was to Rich Fitzgerald, that would probably be it.
Well, if he does it well, I won't have any complaints.
Well, that's the concern.
Isn't his job, ideally, when you're an executive, to bring people on board who are qualified and skilled, and you delegate and you let them do their thing? Why does he? Because
at a certain point, there has to be some accountability, and this is the problem.
What?
Look, when he removed Steve Bland from the Port Authority, the problem isn't necessarily that he removed Steve Bland. I mean, I think even the board members who voted to remove him said he did a good job of operational control, blah, 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 but we had problems with him. Well, okay, there's probably somebody in the universe out there who could probably do that job better than Steve Bland. I mean, I don't think he's the greatest Port Authority director of all time. But what was sort of complicating and muddying the waters here was that Fitzgerald, and he acknowledged that this was true, Fitzgerald originally wanted to replace Bland, at least on an interim basis, with this guy, Joe Brimmeyer, who is on the Port Authority board. And Joe Brimmeyer is a guy who ran the Pennsylvania Turnpike for many years.
And he's a hack.
And had built up a sort of controversial track record there, and doesn't have a hell of a lot of experience in mass transit. So there were some very serious concerns, and essentially Fitzgerald got backed down on that. He got back down on that because there was complaints coming from the governor's office. Apparently, there were complaints coming within his own circle. So it's not just a question of removing these guys; it's who do you replace them with? And the thing that's a little worrisome, the move that was announced today was that Brad Penrod, the director of the Allegheny
County
airport, the airport folks, that he was removed because he hadn't brought enough flights in to Allegheny County. We've been losing flights at the international airport and so on. Well, I mean, how much of that can be blamed on
this one guy?
Similarly with Bland, the big complaint they had, I mean, Fitzgerald had several complaints, but the big one that the board had was he has not succeeded in bringing in a stable source of funding from the state. Well, that's true, but Steve Bland hasn't walked on water either. He can't heal the blind or raise the dead. I mean, it's you got to look at these things. So there's somewhat a concern, I think, that is it necessarily fair?
So what do you think of the personality, though? Are you surprised to see Fitzgerald? I mean, I know him as a nice guy and this and that, but seeing him now with power and how he just really likes to use it and sees. I mean, what is your sense? This story
we did, it was by my reporter Lauren Daly, and it's a good piece. And it starts with Fitzgerald in the Strip District, wanting to cross Penn Avenue, which, as you know, is a pretty busy street. And just basically after a second or two looking up and down the street, just bulldozing straight down the street, like in front of oncoming traffic. And his spokesperson, Amy Downs, says to Lauren, our reporter, we call that the full Fitzgerald, when he just goes, when he just kind of goes all out like that. He has always been a hard charging guy. I think if you cast your mind back to the early days of his campaign when he was running for this office, there was this celebrated email that he sent to the Marcellus Shale Coalition.
Where's my money?
And it was basically if you don't get your members behind me, supporting me financially, blah, 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 blah. Very hard driving kind of message. He's just he's a juggernaut. He comes at you. And again, I mean, at least he's honest. It's about there's not a hell. I mean, the guy is he's not subtle. He's not subtle. He's as open as
well, there's something, I don't know. There's something somewhat attractive about it.
I mean, it's the Chris Christie thing, right? In some ways,
that's right.
I mean, where he stands. He doesn't make any bones about it, and I do appreciate that about it. I mean, because he comes out and he has this philosophy of authorities. I personally don't agree with it, but I find it refreshing that at least he's not jerking me around and trying to pretend, as some others who've appointed people have, that, oh no, they just came to this decision on their own, and it's not because I, twisted their arm in a closed door meeting for an hour and a half.
Yeah, he's really something. He said, at the end of the day, he says, I've got to be the one who sets the policies. we have to insert ourselves or things won't be done. He has a great deal of admiration for his own ability to get things done, obviously. But isn't he putting himself in a little bit of a... Now that he has essentially said, I'll be running the Port Authority.
Right.
If it doesn't...
But again, to his credit...
...any better...
To his credit, then, we can vote him out of office. Right? I mean, that's the kind of upside, is if he screws up the Port Authority or his guy screws up the Port Authority, then it's absolutely fair for the voters to kick him out and presume that the guy they replace him with maybe will hire somebody better. So in that sense, there is some accountability there. My concern is just, who he gets to replace. They're going to do a job search. The interim person they hired is Ellen McLean, who used to be the finance director for the city of Pittsburgh in Mayor Tom Murphy's administration. She's quite competent. So she's okay. I just, one of the things one of the gripes he had with Steve Bland was he wasn't converting the vehicle fleet to natural gas quickly enough. And I mean, I'm no expert, but that's not a cheap proposition. You got to buy new buses. You got to have the infrastructure to fuel them and all that stuff. And, you're dealing with a cash-strapped agency. If I'm Steve Bland, am I worrying about that, or am I worrying about trying to make sure that as many people are able to get to work as I can humanly do? I mean,
is Bland going to sue the county?
I would say it's possible. The fact that he hasn't said anything. But, I mean, the problem is, they fired him without cause, which means he's entitled to severance and stuff like that, and that may have an impact on it. But I certainly think Bruce Dixon has already sued.
That's true.
So is it possible that Bland does? Sure. I don't know that he's going to, but he'd be crazy not to be thinking about it.
Right. Well. But what I sort of like, as a reporter person, Fitzgerald's an interesting guy to have in
Oh, yeah.
In the driver's seat.
Yes. Yep.
Not boring.
Yeah. Not boring. And again, very accessible. And I can only laud him for being willing to be as candid as he is about this.
Really?
Stuff. Yeah. I mean, again, it's also he's got a great spokesperson who's very, very forthcoming, and we respect that.
He asked why I never let him come on my show.
Here?
Yeah. He said, why don't you ever have me on?
You should have him on your show.
No, I said, because I can't stand you politicians. I can't stand any of you. I
think that would make for good radio. I think your seething animosity would light up the wires.
I like him personally. He's like a neighbor practically. I said, but I don't, you politicians make my, my eyes roll around. I can't. But
he's not a regular politician. He's not going to bullshit you. Look, we were watching the other day. It's not his account. I mean, but his Twitter account, he's not the guy who does it. But somebody was like tweeting, like, I'm really upset with how you're handling this stuff. And I'm assuming it was his spokeswoman.
They got right back.
Responded and just said, this is why we're doing it. And again, it's just, I respect that. Mm-hmm. If I don't agree with it, I respect that the guy's willing to go toe-to-toe and have it out. Can I just ask you about the microphone necklace you're wearing there? I just noticed it now. Is that like an award or something, or just?
No, it's just like a little microphone.
It's neat.
If this one
doesn't
work, I'll talk into this.
Very nice.
No, I walked into a store in Shadyside, and they said, Lynn, we've got a necklace just with your name on it.
Yeah, I can't imagine how many other people would buy radio microphones. Small niche market there, I would think.
That's right. So I did take it. I want to ask you about what I think is just I'm just so fascinated by it. The Richard III skeleton. Aren't you into that?
I was into it. Underneath a parking lot too, which is.
Jeez.
That seems more like an American story.
I mean, but now I'm much more curious about him. I mean, I don't know much about him to start with.
Yeah.
But
because they found.
All I know about him is, I saw Richard III, the Shakespeare play, but that's not a real history.
You missed the epilogue where people pulled up wagons over his corpse to go into the convenience store and all that stuff.
I didn't see that part where they're
people really
parking on top of him.
Exactly. That's right.
No, but I just, and I think one of the funniest things is that the Queen has made it clear that she does not want him reinterred with her ancestors at, Westminster? Is that where they all are?
I think so.
So isn't that funny that, like...
Why is that?
I don't know.
Are they all the same? I can never remember all that war. I can never remember all that War of the Roses crap.
No. See, she's not related to him. That's a different... But she is related to the guy who overthrew him.
Oh, I see.
Tudor.
Yes, okay.
Isn't she related to Tudor?
Oh, God, I'm sorry.
See, you don't.
I was watching this thing I was actually watching this thing on the British monarchy on Netflix, but it actually only got up to the Tudors before it stopped, and so now I can't remember who's the.
Well, listen, one of our listeners, Mary, says she's related to William the Conqueror.
No.
Is that cool? She says, I'm a descendant of King Henry I of England.
Yeah. Right.
Who reigned from 1100 to 1135. She's a descendant of one of his many illegitimate children, Reginald Fitzroy. And then she goes into the whole thing. Oh, God, here's Corbett. How'd he get in here? Reginald's mother was Sibylla Corbett.
Dun, dun, dun.
King Henry was also known as King Henry Beauclerc.
Yeah.
And then her family came over here in 1636.
Wow.
And his name was Dr. Comfort. Oh, what a great name, Dr. Comfort Star.
Sounds like a porn name.
Came over to be the first doctor in the colonies. His son was one of the fellows who helped establish Harvard Medical School. This is so cool.
Man, I actually don't feel qualified to be on this show anymore. If I known we were in presence of royalty, I would have dressed better for starters.
Well, I mean, you're not in the presence of royalty.
She's listening. She could be listening.
She says,
right
my
now.
mom's side is related to Henry Clay Frick. Well, that's your...
1 out of 2 ain't bad.
Yeah, right. Her great-great-great-great-grandfather, Martin Overholt, was the brother of Henry Clay Frick's great-grandfather.
Yes, Henry Overholt. He made the whiskey, yeah.
Martin is the brother who came over to this side of Pennsylvania and settled near Scottdale, and then got his brother Henry to follow him because the land was so good. If you ever get a chance to read the book, The Henry Clay Frick Houses, written by the great-granddaughter Martha Frick Symington Sanger, you can read about my great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather on page 4. My great-great-great-great-great-grandfather moved to the Green Lake pastures of Ohio, and the rest is history. I will stop. I don't want to bore you like I tend to bore my children with all these genealogy stories. Wow. That's pretty cool.
I have to say, if I had a lineage like that, it would really raise the pressure on me for like who I married. I mean, wouldn't you feel like you had to kind of keep up the side or whatever?
Well, what I didn't read that she pointed out, and this is true too, she said that she remembers upsetting her father when she was a teenager, when he was looking at the genealogy spread across the kitchen table and was attempting to teach her about what a wondrous family she was part of. And then she said to him, Dad, all it takes is for one woman to have cheated on her husband to make this whole thing bogus.
Right.
That's right.
That's true. In fact, if memory serves, the parts of the Monarchy series I did watch on Netflix, I think there were questions about that happening and who was the rightful heir to the throne. Wow.
Jeez.
This is a really fairly distinguished audience you've got here, I have to say. I'm impressed by that.
Yes, we do. We have a
level of blue-blooded aristocracy.
All right, Mary, thank you very much.
Comfort Star.
You got such a classic name, too. Yeah. We won't give your last name, but are you related to the famous PA? Yeah. No, I won't. Because your last name is a famous American. Jeez. I'm not related to anybody in particular. How about you? Are you?
No, I wouldn't go so far as to say, no.
I mean, nobody like famous or infamous?
No.
No, me either.
I was hoping to be that person, but it's not going so well.
There's still plenty of time. Got half your life ahead of you.
Well, that's an optimistic way of looking at it.
Well, it is. Yeah, anyway, thank you so very much, Mr. Potter.
Good to be here, as always.
Thank you.
Sokolowski tomorrow?
Sokolowski tomorrow, unless he's got these. He's been having hand surgery, and he has to have more surgery tomorrow. Depends on when this. What are you? You're going to make some obnoxious remarks?
No, that's fine. So it depends on when he's done.
Yes, it depends on when
It's
they
outpatient,
schedule
I guess.
his
Okay.
surgery. If they schedule it early in the morning, he always makes the show anyway because it's not a general
So will he be coming in
anesthesia.
with like big bandages?
Yeah, he'll come in with all bandaged up. He did that once before.
I might actually just arrange to walk by the window a few times if that happens.
Okay, so we're hoping Tom will be with us tomorrow. Okay. And you guys have a good day. I'm going home to shovel my driveway for the 7,000th time this week. Okay? Bye.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper, Steel City Media, and its advertisers.